things to begin with about the engagement this evening. This session is going to be streamed and is currently being streamed on YouTube and recorded. To protect your privacy, all participants have their video turned off and have been muted. And the chat functionality in Zoom has been turned off as well. Sometimes technology troubles happen. We've had some in the background even this evening, but they've been solved and we're ready to go. But there are a list of common challenges on Get Involved Kingston, including if your audio or video aren't working. You can also adjust your view options so you can see both the presentation and the members of the project team at the same time. If your internet connection goes down, you can call into the meeting at the number on the screen, so you might want to take a quick snapshot of that or write it down just in case. You can also obviously follow live on YouTube, and we'll do our best to help you with technical problems, but sometimes the easiest way to resolve issues is to log out of Zoom and rejoin the meeting. That whole turn it off, turn it back on system, you can do that with your registration and confirmation email that you received. If you have a question at any point during the session, please use the Q&A feature. It's available to ask questions, or following the presentation, there'll be an additional option to raise your hand to ask a question verbally. We'll have a dedicated Q&A session, but during the presentation, the Q&A feature can be found and used on the bar across the bottom of the screen. To ask a question, simply type into the question area. When the question comes into us, the project team will work to respond to the question with you. Please note that if we don't get to all the questions for some reason, all the questions and answers will be summarized by the project team and posted on the project page, and we'll get that information to you in the best way possible. The other process is to raise your hand, is to speak and ask a question verbally. If you have a question or comment following the presentation, please use the raise hand function that can be found following these steps. First of all, you got to click on the Q&A. A pop-up appears. There are multiple options, and choose raise hand. And both Bruce and myself will be monitoring this, and we'll acknowledge you and then turn on your microphone so you can ask a question or make a comment. The guidelines for participation are now on the screen. If there's anything additional you would like to have added to the guidelines for this engagement session, please let us know. To confirm, I'm going to give everyone a quick second to read that over. And to confirm that everyone agrees, we'd ask you, if you're not in agreement, please raise your hand using the raise hand function. All right, I don't see any hands being raised, so thank you. We will proceed in this meeting, and we'll follow these guidelines for participation. And now I have the honor and pleasure to pass this presentation over to Bruce Davis, the project manager for the ICH.
Rob, thank you very much for that. How's my audio? Can you hear me okay?
Sounds good to me, sir.
Great, thank you for that. Welcome everyone. My name is Bruce Davis and I'm your facilitator this evening. I'm a project manager with the City of Kingston. Tonight's session is being actually hosted by the Integrated Care Hub, but I'm going to help with community engagement and facilitation tonight. The land we're discussing today on Montreal Street is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat peoples, and this area is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. The purpose of tonight's session is to update members of the community on the Integrated Care Hub at 661 Montreal Street. It's been operating at this site, I guess it's about 9 months now already. So we're here to share information, but also to hear from you, to answer as many questions as possible, and also to take down your comments. And we'll explain a little bit later on tonight how you can get involved in the Community Liaison Committee on a go-forward basis, because this is really part of a process of involving the community in the success of the Integrated Care Hub. And my understanding is that tonight's session is being recorded, and that will be made available online. And I think it's also going to be made available online on the HARS website. So we'll give you those details. But of course, this is also being facilitated by the City of Kingston. So it's on the city's YouTube web channel. So you can share this with other people who didn't have a chance to be here tonight. And again, thank you to my technical co-host, Rob Hosier at the City of Kingston in the Communications Office, helping with the background. And I know some of the other technical staff behind the scenes are helping out. So thank you very much for that. In terms of the agenda, we've got about 15 minutes of presentation. And then we're going to open the floor to questions and comments. So we will open it up so you can speak. And we're not pre-screening the calls or questions, so you will have an opportunity to ask the panel or people here questions if you have any. As with any public meeting I facilitate, I always like to remind participants to keep their comments concise, constructive, and considerate of other views. The shorter the question or comment, the more people can get to speak. It looks like we have a smaller group online tonight. So I'm certain we can get through all of the questions that come up as long as everyone's able to keep their comments concise. I know, and we know, that people have strong views about the Integrated Care Hub, both pro and con. And I just ask people to be considerate and not to use language that'll further victimize the people we're trying to support through this initiative, or to use hurtful or hateful language. And at the same time, we also want neighbors to feel comfortable raising their concerns. We don't want you to feel uncomfortable if you do have a concern that you want to bring forward. So we want to make sure that that dialogue is healthy and that you feel comfortable. Because this is a public meeting or a public session, it's not a statutory public meeting, but it is a public session. I'd ask that you not discuss confidential personal information in this forum. So you have to phrase your question in such a way that you leave out the personal details. We don't really want, it's not appropriate to mention individual people's names if it's an employee issue or a client issue or something that's happened personal. Some of those things might be best discussed offline. Of course, you can ask your question, but just if you could ask it in such a way so that we can leave the personal details out, that would be really helpful. That would be really, really, really great. So with that, I just want to very quickly walk through in terms of the agenda in our panel tonight. Ashley O'Brien is the manager of the Integrated Care Hub. Many of you know Ashley, and Amanda Rogers is her partner here on the ICH. She handles the harm reduction side of the services. Justine McIsaac works for Street Health and Kingston Community Health Centers, and she manages the consumption treatment services at the Integrated Care Hub. And we've also got from Kingston Police, Sergeant Clem Nisanayagam with the Community Oriented Response Unit at Kingston Police. So we've got a really great panel. Hopefully we'll have all the answers. And there are other folks who we have kind of on the sideline, staff from different agencies and groups, so that if we have another question that maybe we can't answer, we'll bring them forward and introduce them at an appropriate time. I just wanted to remind you, my name is Bruce Davis, and I'm a project manager with the Housing and Homelessness Office at the City of Kingston. I'm relatively new to the City of Kingston. I started about a month ago, so please be gentle with me. And that's it for introductions, really. Let's get started with the agenda. First, we want to set the context. The three major issues that we're facing: a housing crisis, drug poisoning crisis, and the pandemic, which is affecting the city. Then we're going to hear about the Integrated Care Hub and the services and how they're approaching it, their values about how they approach it. Then we're going to hear from Kingston Police. And then at the end, I'll bring in some information about the Community Liaison Committee and how you can get involved on an ongoing basis. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Ashley O'Brien, I'm the manager of the Integrated Care Hub. Ashley, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Hi, Bruce. Thank you. Can you see me? Yes. Okay, good. I can't see anything and I can't tell if my screen is on, but
yes, you're good.
Perfect. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I think I want to start by acknowledging that Justine, Amanda, and I are actually quite nervous about engaging in this conversation. And we're nervous because the Integrated Care Hub means a lot to us, and we really care about the people we serve. And we know that our neighbors have some very valid concerns, and that the work that we do is really challenging. So we're hoping that this is going to be the beginning of many conversations moving forward, so that we can hopefully coexist. I'm going to talk a little bit about our services, and then just defer to Justine McIsaac to talk about community treatment services on site as well. So the Integrated Care Hub was created in response to three intersections of crises within our community: the global health pandemic of COVID-19, where we saw many health and social service agencies unable to provide services at their regular capacity, a complex housing crisis that we are all well aware of, and then also a drug poisoning crisis where people are, dying at an astronomical rate, leaving families and those who love people who use substances devastated. So our integrated care model prioritizes accessibility, and it meets people where they're at. So the people we serve don't have to access health and social services all across the city. So as many of you may already be aware, our program is based on 5 core pillars. So harm reduction, trauma and violence informed care, stabilization, wellness, and cultural safety. And really our values are underpinned and rooted in creating meaningful connection, belonging, and community. So our program is led by the people that we serve, HIV and AIDS Regional Services and Street Health Center. But one of the most unique aspects of an integrated care model is that it really truly is a community response. So addiction and mental health services are providing support Monday to Friday, providing transitional case managers on site. And they are also providing crisis and mobile community in crisis rapid response whenever any of our staff need help in de-escalating a situation that might be challenging. We have home-based housing and outreach workers that attend the hub every single day, building relationships and fostering connection to housing supports. And Street Health Center is also here providing flu shot clinics, gains assessments to addiction treatment, STI testing, hepatitis C and HIV testing, income tax clinics, ID clinics, and primary health care. So, not only are our community partners providing services at the hub each and every day, we're also meeting monthly with our community partners, including Kingston Police, Detox, Kingston Health Sciences Center, Home-Based Housing, the Kingston Youth Shelter, and Providence Care to identify and address barriers to service with compassion, to ensure that our most resilient and marginalized members in our community are taken care of at this complex and difficult time within our community. So an integrated care hub such as ours is crucial in providing stabilization and is a stepping stone for people to access long-term housing successfully. And most of the people we serve are experiencing chronic homelessness, substance use, and suffer with complex mental health challenges. So we know that the people that we serve, often experience generational poverty, many traumatic adverse childhood events, are disconnected from their families, and really do truly just want to be well. We know that the global health pandemic, our complex housing crisis, and the drug poisoning crisis have made it more difficult than ever to properly support the people that we serve. So at the Integrated Care Hub, we focus on stabilization and wellness by promoting respectful relationships and really a community of kindness, which includes our neighbors as well. So, that's a bit of a snapshot of who we are and what we do. And we understand that, serving our most marginalized community members who are affected by systemic violence comes with great challenges for us dealing with those behaviors and challenges for our neighbors who live in close proximity to the hub. And we've heard concerns from our neighbors and recognize that they're valid. And we hope to work together to problem solve concerns as they arise and hopefully learn to coexist to improve not only the wellness for the people that we serve, but for the people who live in the neighborhood as well. And we recognize that one can't exist without the other. So at this point, I'm going to defer to Justine McIsaac to speak a bit about consumption and treatment services on site as well.
Thank you very much for that, Ashley. Do we want to get Justine? There you go. Justine, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Super grateful to be here and very thankful to everybody that took the time out of their lives today to show up this. So thank you so much. CTS opened in 2018 in response to the opioid catastrophe, as we saw a serious increase of deaths associated to drug poisoning, particularly in this city where we've had a higher increase of deaths than the provincial average. CTS is not just a place where people can safely use substances, but also a crucial point for referrals and change. We make consistent referrals to residential treatment, opiate substitution therapy, and are continuously combating and preventing communicable diseases like hepatitis C, HIV, and a wide range of other complex health needs that could potentially overwhelm our healthcare system without community intervention. It's really a safe space for anyone. Now, realistically, when Consumption Treatment Services was operating out of Street Health on Barrack Street, we really weren't servicing people to the capacity that we felt we needed to be. And the reality was that's because we were not operating out of a space where people were consistently, right? We needed to be in a space where people were accessing an access point for individuals. And since partnering with HARS and the Integrated Care Hub, we have seen like a substantial increase in people accessing this service. We have reversed more overdoses. We've talked about this several times in the month of January alone than we did all of 2018, 19, 20 combined. So we are actually meeting people exactly where they're at. One of the challenges that we had prior to operating consumption treatment services without being with the Integrated Care Hub is that we closed our doors every night at 10 o'clock. And that was really hard to have individuals that you knew potentially were not safe, no longer had a space to access, and we were no longer there to intervene and care for them to the best of our ability. Now that we have partnered with the Integrated Care Hub, we have the capability to leave people in good hands that are well supported when consumption treatment services closes their doors. It's a beautiful thing that I can take people up and hand them a warm handoff to people up in the drop-in that is open 24 hours a day, and people have access to things like naloxone and harm reduction supplies 24/7 in this city. It's amazing that when somebody that I'm working with that is using substances, that is struggling and is in psychosis and has deep-rooted sleep deprivation, that I have a space where they can safely rest their head in the rest zone at the Integrated Care Hub, where they can get the sleep that they need, that is vital to their wellness and their recovery, right? I know this is a challenging concept for a lot of people to understand, and I know it's relatively new, especially in North America, where this thought of we open our doors and allow people to use illicit substances. It is a hard thing to grasp, but we are quite far behind. Europe has been operating safe injection sites since the 70s. We can look at countries like Portugal, who in 2000 decriminalized all substances and put all that money that they put into criminalizing people for their substance use and reinvested it back into those individuals' lives. So it's probably one of the most challenging jobs that I've ever had in my life. Like Ashley said, you know, I really do understand people's concerns. I really do validate that they have had negative experiences, and we're committed, and I believe that the people that we serve are committed to making this space work and making this neighborhood somewhere where we can all coexist and rely on each other greatly. So I again appreciate everybody's time in being here. I'm grateful for it, and I hope that this is just the beginning of a really positive journey for all of us. Thank you so much.
Amanda, thank you very much for that. I'm going to go next. I think the next slide we bring up is with the Kingston Police, and I'm going to call on Sergeant Clem Nisenagam with the Kingston Police. The community. Let's see if we have the next slide here. Rob, if we could bring up the next slide. There we go. With the community-oriented response unit, and I know policing has been an issue. I know there was a meeting with the chief of police recently where there was some feedback from the community, and I think on the basis of that and some other conversations, we've got some good feedback tonight. So Sergeant Clem, if you want to bring up your audio, your video.
I think I turned my audio and video on. Can you see me?
I cannot see you.
How's that now? Am I coming through?
Your audio is good. Your video is not there. So I don't know if you've obscured your camera, if you've turned your video off or on. The beauty of technology.
Okay.
Folks, thank you very much for bearing with us. I'm just going to ask my technical co-host, Rob, is there anything that you would like Clem to do to tweak his video? Any suggestions for troubleshooting while we've got you here?
I think at the moment the audio is coming in really well, so I think if Clem can just use the audio for a moment while we work in the background and see if we can rectify this.
Super, thank you very much. So Sergeant, if you just want to walk us through your brief presentation, that would be great. And I know we're going to have questions for you tonight, so we appreciate you being here.
Excellent, and I appreciate you in inviting us. I just wanted to touch on a few things in terms of communication with the police and when to call and what resources we have that you guys can use. Obviously, any type of emergency, just dial 911 directly. We have other options as well. You can use our online reporting tool, which you can locate at kingstonpolice.ca. For non-emergency incidents, you can dial into our Kingston Police headquarters at 613-549-4660. And if you want to reach me directly, I have my phone number on the screen now, but it's 613-549-4660, extension 6303. One of the things I wanted to touch on was how 911 calls and calls for service are actually triaged and assigned. And I'll just start with that. So in order for our communication staff to decide on the appropriate priority and type of response necessary, our dispatchers need to understand and evaluate the nature of the call and the recommended priority level. So when I say priority level, depending on the nature of the call, these calls are given a certain priority number. And those numbers can be priority 1, 2, 3, 5, and 9. And I'll go through each of those. So the priority of a call will be determined by the information available initially and may change as the further information is received. For priority 1 calls, we classify them as immediate mobile dispatch. So these are calls where situations that actually or potentially could cause serious bodily harm, injury, or death to any person. Situations that require immediate assistance to a police officer, or serious situations that present the immediate potential for property damage or injury to anyone. This includes crimes in progress or crimes that have just occurred, and if the suspect is at scene or in the area. For priority 2 calls, they're mobile dispatch within 15 minutes. So uniform patrols are usually, we'll try and get dispatched within that 15-minute time frame of receiving that call. These are incidents where the presence of a police officer is desirable or necessary, but not of an emergent nature. And these include where there's a need to protect the scene of a crime or for the preservation of evidence, or where an officer is needed to secure and interview potential witnesses. Priority 3 calls are mobile dispatch to arrive within an hour. And again, this is based on availability of our resources. The criteria for this type of mobile response are that the incident has not just occurred to the point where an immediate mobile response would be advantageous, and that the matter cannot be handled by our alternative response unit. Priority 5 calls are calls that are taken at our front desk. For these types of response, the incident has not just occurred to the point where a mobile response would be advantageous. There's no significant physical injury or potential for injury, and the suspect is not known, and that there is little likelihood of apprehension. There is no need to protect the scene, and there are no witnesses to interview, and there's no imminent danger to the scene. And finally, we have our priority 9 calls, which are handled by our alternative response unit. And this is, there's no mobile response. These are incidents where police officers not required to attend and a police report is not needed, but an agency exists that could effectively deal with that problem. And I just wanted to touch on the importance of reporting incidents to the police. When a report is filed either through a front desk or an officer on the road, what happens with that report is that it will get assigned to either an investigator or to the officer that is actually taking the report. These assigned reports either will go to our alternative response unit or the patrol officer, the core unit, or in CID. So it's very important that when someone does witness an offense or a crime has occurred, that we get notified of it. And no matter where the area is, if an officer does form the grounds for a charge, the person will get charged.
Okay, I just wanted to double check while we have a pause there. Can we just try your audio again? Is that possible to try your audio or your video? Sorry, video one more time. Good. Okay, thank you very much for that. And we'll see if we can bring that in a little bit later. Do we want to go to the next slide? Sergeant, I just wanted to check with you. Are you, I wasn't sure if you had finished your presentation.
Yeah, that's all I got there for now. Thanks,
Okay,
Bruce.
super. And I know tonight is really, it's about the Integrated Care Hub and making and helping it to be successful in the community. And I know it seems odd bringing in so much of the police dynamic, because this is really meant to be a service center for people who are vulnerable, who are looking for service and support. But we know that the community members have raised policing issues before, and we had a really good meeting with the police chief a couple of weeks ago. So that's why we asked Sergeant Clem to be here. Typically, these things would not be dealt with as a police matter, but we thought it would be healthy to at least bring those issues forward so you could ask your questions tonight. So we're going to go now to questions. And my suggestion is, we had one submitted in the Q&A. I'm going to go to that one first. And then I had a couple of quick ones, very quick to get the ball rolling. I'd like to try. And then we'll open your mic and you just put your hand up, and then we can or raise the question, whatever that tool is, and then I'll just run down right down the list. There was a question online that came through from the Q&A from Tammy. She asked, is this Zoom meeting being considered an official community consultation for the 5.61 exemption under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act? So Tammy, I don't think there's anyone on the panel who can answer that question directly. However, I know I've been consulted by the Kingston Community Health Centers on the whole question of community consultation. It's a process. And typically what would happen if you are applying for a consumption treatment service, or if you're applying for an urgent public health needs site, these are different designations. But if you are applying to have a consumption treatment service or an urgent public health needs site where you can use drugs on site, then you do have to go through a community consultation process. So it could be a series of meetings, it could be communicating with the neighborhood, it could be a meeting like this, or a community liaison committee. So I can't answer your question directly because I don't think there's anyone on the panel who can answer that. However, tonight and other community outreach activities would be part of a plan that would be submitted if you were going to apply for a consumption treatment service or an urgent public health needs site. One's federal, one's provincial. That's the difference. And the urgent public health needs site was COVID related, and it did not require the same level of community consultation and involvement. So the feds and the province had slightly different criteria. I hope that answers your question. If not, please write to us and we will try and get a better answer for you. Next, we're going to go to, I had a question here that came through. And this is for the ICH staff. So Amanda or Ashley, it might go to you. The question was about, you've changed recently your security. It was, I guess, commissionaires, and now you're using your own community outreach security engagement staff. Can you tell us about that change? What, why and how is it working? Can I get Ashley or?
Yeah, I'm on, Bruce. It's not letting me turn my video on. It's saying the host has stopped it. If we just wanted to turn that back on.
Okay.
There we go. Folks can see me okay?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm just going to ask Rob, do you want to bring down the panel screen so we don't need to see the slide? We don't need the slide. I don't think, let's just go ahead. So we've had this change from commissionaires to your own engagement outreach security staff. How and why is that? And how is it working?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Thank you so much. So when we started at Artillery Park, like you had mentioned, Bruce, we had hired on and contracted the commissioners to provide some security work. It was soon into opening the Integrated Care Hub and the CTS that we noticed we wanted to make a shift from enforcement to engagement, recognizing that the needs of the people we serve are quite complex, that we're often in neighborhoods where we need to be providing support for the entire neighborhood. So really, we wanted to make a shift. So we hired our own internal staff called safety and engagement outreach workers. So some community members, in close proximity may have seen our new safety and engagement workers. We've hired a team of 8 full-time staff who have built trusting relationships with the people we serve, who are trained in de-escalation and providing appropriate support to help address the complex needs that the people we serve are experiencing on a day-to-day basis. So that happened about mid-May. We switched over and we now have our own team. And I think we've seen some great successes, and we really feel that this will catapult a sense of community safety, a sense of coexisting together in a more meaningful way. To quickly kind of outline the jobs and the duties that the safety and engagement workers are doing while they're on shift. So of course, they're making sure that folks, the people we serve, on our property and in close proximity are safe and supported. So providing de-escalation support, liaising with community partners when we need to make referrals to outside organizations. They're also conducting routine and regular patrols. So this was something that we had kind of, started with the commissionaires, and we really knew that when we hired our own internal staff, we would have more flexibility to do the things that we knew we needed to do, and then also use the guidance, feedback, concerns from our community neighbors to also create a more robust safety and engagement program. So they're conducting community patrols in close proximity to the integrated care hub. They're also conducting community cleanup. So they're walking in close proximity to the ICH and picking up, used sharps, harm reduction equipment, helping tidy, picking up garbage. They're also communicating with bylaw. So we have a good partnership with the City of Kingston bylaw enforcement. So whenever we have encampments or folks, we're making sure that we're connecting with them. What we've done strategically, not only providing support to the people we serve, but also providing support to our neighbors and our community members in close proximity is on Wednesdays, we've started to introduce, a liaising day. So we're doubled up with our safety and engagement workers. And really what we're doing is allocating dedicated time to go out, foster and build trusting relationships with our neighbors, have it be an opportunity to, hear the concerns, be solution focused, work together to make sure that everyone is really feeling engaged in the process and they have a trusting avenue to voice those concerns to. So that's kind of in a nutshell. And of course, like doing the day-to-day, responding to overdoses, making sure that we're referring people to CTS, making sure that we're also liaising with our partners at Kingston Police when we need to, activate emergency response, whether that be paramedics or police, to provide support to the people we serve. And they're essentially acting as facilitators, not only to community partners, but to us as a management team when concerns are brought forward, so we can engage with the folks who are bringing forward concerns and find solutions and work together as a community.
Thank you very much for that, Amanda. I want to keep you up on the screen for a second because there was another question that came in. You may want to try this one, or you may want to pass this one over to someone else. But there was a question about the property, and this came from Nathaniel. So the ICH property actually stops at the edge of the building. And then there's a little piece that the ICH has, or the property owner has, I guess, leased from the city. It's on the south side of the building. And then there's the park on after that. So it's a really interesting question, because the question was, when and if the ICH issues a trespass notice, if someone's restricted, I guess, from coming onto the property, does that only include the part of the property, or does it also include the piece that is leased, or does it also include the adjacent park? So I've kind of rephrased Nathaniel's question a little bit, but I'm just wondering if that's something that you would like to start with the answer, and then I can go to someone else if you think it's appropriate. If a trespass notice is issued, this is kind of linked to what you were just talking about with your engagement staff.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. So thank you to whoever asked that. And I think, what that really highlights is that a lot of the concerns faced by some of our neighbors are concerns and challenges that we're trying to work through and be innovative and creative at the same time to ensure safety. When we're issuing orders of no trespass, it pertains to the property of 661 Montreal. So the ICH property, which what we really see that as is kind of like our our fenced in area. So anything, you know, inside of the fences, when we are issuing an order of no trespass through Kingston Police for a variety of different reasons, that would pertain to the property itself at the integrated care hub. Now, working in partnership with the City of Kingston, having a close partnership with bylaw, we are able, our safety and engagement workers are able to issue orders of no trespass for the purpose of erecting structures or loitering. And again, that also kind of like would tie into the new encampment protocol. So there is some accountability on the safety and engagement workers that can issue orders of no trespass on the other side of the fence, the south side of the fence. But that's only pertaining to structures or loitering. That's not actually pertaining to an order of no trespass where someone can't be on the property, because that is city property and not a property that we're leasing for operations at the ICH.
Okay, thank you for that. We're getting a few other questions coming in, and because they're kind of linked to what you're talking about, I'm just going to keep asking you these questions. And then I had another question for Clem in a second. So let's go to this next one from Val. The neighbors were promised by, it looks like somebody from the city, I don't know all of the names here, but he stated that the security would be patrolling the area. And we were starting to see that with the commissionaires, but we're not seeing this kind of neighborhood patrolling since you hired your own staff. When are we going to start seeing patrolling happening in this area? Now, I think you covered some of this, so we may be going over it again, but this is Val's question, an expectation that neighbors would see your community engagement and security staff off the property and just in the neighborhood more.
Yeah, Val, that's a fantastic question. And we have been conducting patrols not only on the property, but on adjacent kind of surrounding property in close proximity to the hub. And we are typically doing anywhere from like 9 to 14 patrols per shift that are not on the property, but on the close adjacent property. Now, I understand why people might be like, we haven't seen anyone. We just last week on Thursday got our uniforms in for our safety and engagement workers. So I think part of it may have been that our safety and engagement staff were patrolling in plain clothing and weren't identifiable to the larger community. So what we've done is we've purchased uniforms where any safety and engagement staff, and this is really helpful for the community to know, to kind of keep an eye on, like, who can I connect with if I'm having some concerns or I see someone walking down the street? Is this a person I can approach, ask some questions to, voice my concerns? So they're all wearing black t-shirts. They have an ICH logo on the side, and they all say safety staff on the back. They also have hoodies that look similar with safety kind of reflective staff noted on the back. And then they have some rain jackets or safety vests that again have our logo and safety staff written on the back, and some ball caps as well in the hot heat to keep people nice and cool. So when you're now seeing people walk around who are wearing our uniforms, that's an indicator that they are one of our safety and engagement staff conducting a patrol. And again, we really do want to work with our neighbors. And if anyone has like suggestions of areas that you've noticed people who might be in distress where we can lend support, where we can go out and assist individuals and bring them back to the hub to make sure they're getting the care that they deserve and need, we're always happy to have those conversations. I'm also happy to share our patrol map, and that's kind of a rough outline of the patrols that we are intending to do throughout our shifts. Again, operating a program in a drug poisoning crisis and supporting people who are often, you know, suffering and in pain and experiencing some complex needs. There are moments where our patrols that are set at certain times may not be conducted because we're dealing with an emergency on site, but then we would just push that patrol back and still conduct it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We're getting a lot of questions, which is really great. It's a little bit like drinking out of a fire hose. So I'm going to pause for a second and I'm going to go through them. I want to make sure everyone gets at least their first question, then I'll go back to a second time. But Clem, Sergeant Clem, I have a question here, and I got this actually quite a bit when I was going door to door last week and the week before. I was talking to neighbors, and I heard this a little bit. We had a session with the chief of police a couple of weeks ago. People were asking, they had heard from the police that there was a stand down order, that nobody would be charged, that the police weren't going to be dealing with any issues that came up, and so on and so forth. But I just want to ask you this question, or a couple of questions to clarify this. Sergeant, I hope that you can hear me. If a criminal offense is committed, if someone's breaking into a car, heaven forbid, or if there's a drug deal going down across the street or on the property adjacent or something like that, if that type of activity, if there's a criminal activity, will those people be charged? Absolutely, yes. That's why I was trying to get that message across. It's really important that you report all that activity and all those criminal offenses to us. Just because someone's a client of the Integrated Care Hub, that's not a free pass. So I just wanted to clarify that if there's grounds to arrest and charge someone, they will be charged. And it may have nothing to do with the ICH, of course. This could be other people who are maybe victimizing people who are using the ICH, or it could be other issues in the neighborhood. We've obviously, there have been issues in the neighborhood before, and whatever, but I'm just asking, I just want to be really, really clear about this. If someone breaks into a car, you still report it. And if we can find the individual, if we have video, that person will be charged. You'll make an assessment about charging that individual. There's no blanket order that says people are not going to be charged anymore. That's correct. Okay, I just wanted to be clear about that while we had you. So a few other questions that are just coming in here. Tammy had one. How many security, this is back to, I guess, the question about the outreach staff. How many security engagement staff do you have? So that would be a question for Ashley. Amanda, go ahead.
Thanks, Tammy. We currently have 8 full-time staff and then some relief staff, so folks can take holidays and take days off. And what that looks like for folks to have an understanding is we're staffed with 1 safety and engagement worker during the day, 1 safety and engagement worker during the evening, and then 2 safety and engagement workers on our overnight rotation. So we have typically 4 people who are working during a 24-hour stretch. And then again, on Wednesdays, we're doubled up. So 2 during the day, 2 on evenings, and 2 on overnight. So we could really be intentional and focus that day on liaising with our neighbors and building good relationships with our community.
Thank you for that. I've got a question from Jeremy. Question for Amanda, Ashley, and Justine. As a neighbor of the ICH who appreciates your work, what can community members do to support the ICH and the people you're working with? Also, can you explain a bit more what you mean by your work being client-led? So what can people do to help? And what do you mean by client-led?
I may not have the full answer to this, and Ashley or Amanda may want to jump in, but I always come back to the fact that, like, we have power and privilege in the positions that we hold. And as community members, if we have that power and privilege, if we have that voice and you want to support us, I suggest like you utilize that voice to the best of your ability, whether that be writing to your MP or your provincial premier, things like that. We're always looking for things like donations of like hygiene supplies, socks, underwear, basic needs for people. I always tell people to just kind of look greater into the drug poisoning crisis, what has been going on since 2012 and kind of the work that we're doing, and really kind of, again, using that power and privilege to invoke change. You know, I think it's important to liaison with the people that you know are accessing the ICH, some of the most incredible people I've ever met in my life. When I took moments to, you know, engage with them, I developed really cool relationships. You know, I've lived in the neighborhood myself for a very long time, and I took opportunities to get to know people as well too, which, you know, brings this kind of mutual respect as well too. And that's something we're trying really hard to do at the ICH, is to have people self-govern and take ownership over the space and really kind of put their all into it and commit to it the same way that we are, so that, you know, we can make this a space that everybody feels safe to access, feels like they're included, feels like they have ownership over it. Those are really important things for people that have been struggling or have been chronically homeless their entire lives, or struggle with a substance use disorder, and people kind of have always frowned upon them. And to have value and meaning and purpose in a community, and to contribute to that in building something like the ICH, I think is so valuable. So we appreciate, your support. That's much valued. You being on this meeting is a huge way to support us as well, and asking that question. So I'm very, very grateful for that. Thank you.
And also, let me jump in and say that a little later on, we're going to ask people to get involved in the Community Liaison Committee. So I'll pitch you on that idea later. But I just want to ask you, Justine, you used a couple of phrases there, client-led and I think, did you say self-governed, or you used a phrase, maybe I got that wrong, but what does that really look like? Because I know how hard it is just to manage any enterprise and having people involved. And then I look at tonight, we have an online technology thing, and we're going to do a community liaison committee. There are barriers for people who maybe don't have the technology, or don't have access to a computer, or don't have whatever. So how is it designed to be successful for clients and for people with real world experience to help with this enterprise? It's difficult under any circumstances, but how do you get people involved? What does that really look like?
Yeah, so I think this is an important piece that we maybe haven't highlighted or talked about that much, but prior to us opening, and although we had a very short time frame before we opened at Artillery Park almost a year ago, we were doing outreach at Bell Park. So what we were doing, we were actually asking the people who were experiencing homelessness, people who were using substances, what could this service look like? So when we're talking about being client-led and really valuing the voices of people with lived and living experience, that was truly at the forefront of the work we were doing, was sitting down with folks, paying individuals for their expertise in helping guide and develop and implement this program. It really did start from the very beginning. What could this service look like? Oftentimes, traditional services are these neat and tidy boxes that we're expecting folks to have to fit into. And what we really wanted to do was just like create a service where people didn't have to fit into a neat and tidy box in order to access services. And we talk about it quite a lot. We saw during the global health pandemic of COVID-19, communities mobilizing and coming up with like rapid solutions and emerging treatments and protocols and guidelines to help combat the COVID-19 pandemic, because we were valuing people's lives. And that looked like consulting the experts. And I think when we parallel that with the drug poisoning crisis or the housing crisis, we can't truly do this work without consulting with the experts. And what we value and what is near and dear to our hearts are the voices of people with lived experience, and people who use substances, people who are experiencing homelessness are the experts in this catastrophe. We cannot do this work without involving the people we serve. We hold weekly meetings with the people we serve where we talk about what's working, what's not working. They've helped develop our rights and responsibilities, so the guidelines that are adhered to while accessing services at the ICH. We have folks who are residents at the ICH who also work with us, and they have an opportunity to be meaningfully employed and earn equitable compensation for the work that they're providing. So when we think about being client-led, like Justine was saying, it's really about recognizing our own power and privilege. It would be a huge mistake for us to just think we know what to do. This really was birthed out of over a decade of us doing the work together and really listening to the people who are experiencing marginalization, structural violence, and oppression, and highlighting their voices, understanding their needs to the best of our ability, and creating a service that they have been begging for and deserved for far too long.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And I've got two questions from Paul. So Paul, I'm going to kind of smoosh your questions together, and then I think I have one other, and then I will have gone through everyone once. So then I'll start going back through, but I'm going to take two of Paul's questions and put them together. One is, have all the current employees at the Integrated Care Hub had vulnerable sector background checks or criminal record checks? so that was part A. And the second question is, how many professional healthcare workers are employed at the ICH? What's the breakdown in terms of registered nurses, nurse practitioners, PSWs, medical staff? So the question is, I don't know who wants to tackle this one, but is there a vulnerable criminal reference check done? And then separately is kind of the makeup of the medical or nursing staff, if we could tackle that.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, for your question. And the answer is yes. So anyone employed through our organizations, whether that be KCHC, Street Health, or HARS, have all passed a vulnerable sector check. Individuals cannot work in this field because of the nature of the work, because we're supporting and providing care to vulnerable individuals. All staff have cleared a vulnerable sector check.
I'm just going to speak to the nursing model at this time. So we obviously work in very close partnership with Street Health. We've been providing primary care for many years to individuals with complex needs surrounding substance use and chronic homelessness and things like that. So we have a rotation of 3 nurses that come throughout the week, as well as they have medical admin support staff that come with them as well. They are able to consult with an NP for prescribing, so a nurse practitioner as well. And in a current application, we've also applied for another full-time, part-time nurse to be at the space 5 days a week. So right now, like I said, it's a rotation of 3 different RNs who have access to consult with either our GP or our nurse practitioners, as well as admin support staff. We also bring in on-site counselors as well too, that provide support, one-on-one support for anybody in that moment that needs that as well. We also bring down our opiate substitution therapy case manager, who does intakes for people for things like methadone, Suboxone, Sublocade, also books gains assessments for residential treatment as well. So providing a lot of care for individuals at least 3 days a week, and hopefully soon 5.
Thank you very much for that. And one of the interesting things about this integrated care healthcare model, the integrated care hub model, is that you're able to bring different agencies to the table who can all support this group of individuals who have different needs, of course. I wanted to just pause and take a minute to bring in one of the other partner groups, Addiction and Mental Health Services for Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, Aniston, have staff who are there on a regular basis working with individual clients. And I'm just wondering if we can bring up Julie Lambert, who's one of the managers at Addiction and Mental Health Services. Julie, I'm just wondering if we can get you to expand on that, maybe just touch very briefly on some of the services that AMHS provides on site at the Integrated Care Hub. Can we get Julie's audio and video hooked up? Julie, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, and I don't see your audio.
Yeah, I've kind of lost that option.
So if I could just ask the host, the event host, to liberate Julie's video. So Julie, the question really is, if you just briefly talk about some of the range of services that AMHS would provide, because this is the integrated care hub model. That's what's kind of neat about it.
Yeah, so we have case managers, addictions and mental health case managers on site at the Integrated Care Hub every day. So they're doing engagement with the clients. They're getting them connected to services, getting ID, helping them find housing. They're advocates. Plus, we also had a street outreach nurse that comes into the hub as well, who was a point person during COVID when at its high point was doing all the COVID testing. Our agency was also providing isolation to clients that were accessing the hub that could have been at risk of having COVID as well. So we were isolating them at a different location that we don't identify. And then we also have outreach. clients would have access to psychiatry as well and any referral services within the agency. We also have mobile crisis support that come to the hub as needed, as well as we have mental health workers in the OPP cars that can respond to a mental health call as well. Also, Sheila's on the call too, so I'm not sure if she wants to add anything.
Thank you for joining us. You're also with Addiction Mental Health, Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, Annington, and I know that you cover, I think you're on the addiction side of the business?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
so,
if you could just give us a very, very brief rundown on the kind of the range of services and supports.
well, I think Julie covered most of it. The hope is that we are having people at the hub on a daily basis, trying to engage and connect them to our services, to bring them in to do assessment for any addiction they may have, and to provide options to them in their client-led recovery. So the nursing, we have coordinators, concurrent disorder case managers, and crisis is available at any time. So.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So I appreciate your feedback, and I just wanted to bring you in because I knew we had you on tonight, and it would be great to hear from you. Separate question, but it kind of follows this thread about professional staff, and this may go back to Amanda or Ashley. And Nathaniel was asking if there's a medical doctor, or should there be a medical doctor on site, and the Tammy had a question, is there a psychiatrist on site? So I don't know, Julie, if that's a question for you or if that's a question for for Justine. The question about a psychiatrist on site and a medical doctor.
I can speak to the psychiatrist. We do, all our workers that attend the hub have access to psychiatry, and they're able to access that for any client that needs a psychiatry appointment. So we do have that available. The medical doctor might be more Justine than us.
Ashley, do you want to take that? Thank you very much. Thank you, Julie, for being here. And Sheila, Ashley, question about a medical doctor.
Can you hear me? Oh,
yes, please go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I can speak to that. We are currently in the process of actually building an exam room in the basement right now, because that has been identified as a need. Many people who are experiencing chronic homelessness have a higher average rate of acute and chronic health illnesses. So that is in the process of being built as we speak, so that medical staff can be here on a more consistent basis from Street Health. And in terms of psychiatry, we also have a really great and responsive partnership with Providence Care. So when we have immediate crisis situations, we can reach out directly to Providence Care, which is literally just like a couple, just a block away from us. And as often as they can, they come immediately right away to respond to people who are in mental health crisis. And that has worked wonderful. We hope moving forward, if we can expand our program, that we would have a medical doctor on site and a psychiatrist on site. But right now, through the integrated care model, it's working pretty well, where services are quite accessible to people. So we're very thankful to the community partners for stepping up and providing that service.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to keep you on for a second there, Ashley. Here's a question from Kelly. I missed this one first time through, but her concern is about Montreal Street is extremely busy. I've almost hit a person who was under the influence coming from the hub. What about that trauma that could have caused? So if this person, Kelly, had hit someone crossing the street, running into traffic, and I've been in that neighborhood too, and it is true, it's very erratic. Sometimes people are in and out of the traffic flow. So her question is really about, what about that impact? What, if anything, can we do about health and safety there? Not just, it's obviously for the person, heaven forbid, who should be hit, but also for the person who inadvertently hit someone. Any thoughts on feedback for Kelly on that one?
Well, I actually just want to thank Kelly for bringing that up, because it is a concern of ours. And I mean, we've seen it. So Kelly's completely right. And it's a fear that we have. Oftentimes when people are under the influence and they're just jetting across the road, people have slammed on the brakes, and we're quite worried about that. So I think that's something that is a really good point to bring up for the city. to see what we can do to slow down traffic. We also have our safety engagement workers who are often, and staff, paying attention to the road and making sure if somebody's on the road that we're pulling them off the road and that we're bringing them onto the property. But I think this is a bigger conversation for us to have with the city in terms of the street and how busy it is. And I think Amanda might have something to add to that as well.
Yeah, thank you, Ash. Just to echo what Ash has said, and I failed to mention it during kind of our safety and engagement piece, which I think is important. We do have a cell phone that our safety and engagement staff are equipped with and carry on them throughout their shift. Of course, this line is a non-emergent line. We would, of course, direct individuals to contact police, paramedic, or fire services depending on an emergency. That being said, this has actually helped in the past, and we've seen where it's played out quite well. So folks will call this line. There might be someone who they see who are unwell, potentially under the influence of substances, maybe wandering into the street, or potentially like this person might wander into the street. That would be a situation where folks could call our safety and engagement outreach worker phone number and just direct us as to where this individual is. The location on Montreal Street or on Rideau Street, and our safety and engagement staff, if they're not available, a frontline staff or harm reduction outreach worker could go out and accompany that person and escort them safely to where they need to go or back to the integrated care hub. So for folks who don't know, the phone number is 613-329-5593. That's available on our website as well for folks to reference that phone number. It definitely is a concern of ours. That's something we have thought as well, worrying about the people we serve, but then also worrying about our neighbors and people who are traveling and commuting on Montreal Street, concerned about their safety and concerned about people who are potentially at risk to themselves. So yeah, thank you for bringing up that question.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. So my suggestion, if it's okay, I'm going to ask the panelists if they could stay on for another 15 minutes so we can get through a few more of these questions. And also I want to put up a slide about how people can stay involved. Tonight is really meant to be, it's a public engagement session, but one of the big things we're trying to do is recruit people to join the Integrated Care Hub's Community Liaison Committee, where we can work through a lot more of these things. A lot of the questions I'm seeing, first of all, people don't like the fact that I'm paraphrasing. They want me to read them word for word. Sometimes there are things in the questions that we cannot, we don't know. Like the mayor said this or the mayor said that. Well, I'm not going to repeat that because I don't know that. But my suggestion is that some of these really need to be taken up with the Integrated Care Hub. It sounds like there are people with real world lived experience, clients who have issues with the management of the facility and they want them addressed. That may not be the best place for them tonight. So we can go through a lot of them, but they're very specific and I'll try and get through them. So we'll go for 10 minutes of questions, and then the last 5 minutes, if we could do the Community Liaison Committee slide, Robert, if that works for you. Nathaniel asked, we've been told that if there are too many incidents, I have to read it. We've been told that if there are too many incidents or disturbances that offend the neighbors, that the ICH will be shut down. Is this true? If not, where did this information originate from? Because it seems to have been communicated from the city. The media told me that this originated from the mayor. So that's a question from Nathaniel. The city council has made a decision to fund the ICH until the end of this year, and there's a lease in place to the end of this year. That has nothing to do with disturbances or politics. That is a lease commitment and a funding commitment to the end of this year. I don't know what the media told you. I have no way of knowing where these rumors start. I don't know how you can answer that, but until the end of the year, the ICH is funded and there's a lease agreement and services agreement in place. But people are working behind the scenes now to try and figure out a successful model to continue. So that we're not in a position tonight to say anything about that, because that work is ongoing behind the scenes to try and figure out how to get this funded, because a lot of these are health related services that are not strictly speaking municipal services. So hopefully we'll have more information about that. We can bring it to the Community Liaison Committee when we get that committee set up. Valerie, we were told that there would be no camping at the ICH or on the land behind the ICH. Why aren't they stopping those that are camping behind the ICH? So this question is really related to encampment. So if it's on the ICH property, that would be an ICH question. If it's an encampment question, like if it's outside of the ICH property, that really relates to the city's encampment protocol. And the city has an encampment protocol. So it's complaint driven. If people complain, then street outreach and bylaw enforcement will attend at the scene or at the location. They, under the protocol that's been approved by the city, they will basically explain the housing options, if any, to the individuals who are there. They give them 48 hours notice and they will return. But their first priority is to offer the housing or shelter services that are available to those individuals. That protocol has been approved by the city. That does not relate to the ICH property itself. I think I've got that correct. And one of my colleagues is on the call. He'll correct me, or he'll jump up if I've got that wrong. The public space, if there's a complaint, street outreach and bylaw enforcement will attend. If it's on private property, like across the street or some of those other properties, then that's a different matter. The city's bylaw or the encampment policy is not managed exactly the same way. So that's a separate issue. It really depends whether it's public, private, or on the ICH property. What else have we got here? Tammy had a question about getting the security staff to intervene in some of the more minor issues that are disruptive to the neighborhood, clients running in and out of the traffic. I think this one's being covered by the comments about the community outreach and security staff. So I think we've got that one answered. There's a question here about when the thieves of clients' property don't get removed or some sort of discipline. So this sounds like a really, really, really good question that someone who's at the ICH or using the facility there has with the management of the facility. And I think that's maybe something that should be taken up in your weekly meetings if you have weekly meetings. It's just about how discipline works internal to the building and when something's stolen, why it isn't, they felt it wasn't done right. Valerie had a question about the safety and engagement outreach workers. Is it 24 hours a day? That one has been answered. But Valerie did have a question about the noise, 24 hours a day, the noise emanating from the ICH. She's an adjacent neighbor. What, if anything, can be done just about the ambient noise, lots of noise and activity coming 24 hours a day. Any suggestions, any feedback from our team on that?
Yeah, it's shared challenges across the board. And I think that's where we like find commonality of like some of the things that folks are struggling with, we struggle with as well. A few things that we have been able to do that are like within the parameters and the scope of what we can do is we have put in like a noise curfew that's even, sooner than the official kind of like city bylaw curfew would be around loud music. We know that was feedback and concerns from some of our adjacent neighbors was there was like lots of music playing quite late at night. So we've implemented a noise curfew, so no loud music. We really do try to make sure that it's a quiet space because we also have folks who are resting inside the building, again, supporting and caring for people with complex, concurrent disorders can be challenging. We do have staff who go out and attempt to de-escalate situations. And this does kind of fall into Tammy's question and Val's question as well in the Q&A, is please do utilize the safety and engagement worker phone number. Is if there, you know, is screaming and it's late at night and you know it's coming maybe from the other side of the fence, please do give us a call and we can go in and assist. If there is someone who is close to your property and it's non-emergent, call that number and we will send somebody over to help assist and support in any way that we can. The reality is it's quite challenging. You know, the folks we serve are adults with agency and choice in their lives. This is not an institution or a jail, so sometimes it can be, you know, challenging for us to navigate these situations as people have agency and choice in their lives. You know, they're not handcuffed here. We're not babysitters. We are caring, supportive staff who are here to do the best we can to support people who are living within the margins.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I have one from Jeremy. Are mental health services available to people who work at the ICH? I know that this work can be very intense. So what supports, if any, are available for the staff? Ashley?
That is a great question. Oh, sorry, we had some feedback there. That's a great question, and actually something as a management team that we're prioritizing right now in terms of the, you know, moral injury that staff have. You know, our work has changed, and it's changed over the last year to 3 years in terms of the drug poisoning crisis. So our staff have a really hard job. They're worked off their feet, and our frontline staff are the ones who have reversed and responded over 275 overdoses since we've been open. So what we've done is we actually have an official partnership with Providence Care right now with their mood disorders therapist team. So all of our staff have quick access to registered psychotherapists through Providence Care as needed. And then we are also actually trying to raise money right now to do solidarity check-ins for our staff, provide extra education and training. And Street Health Center has also offered counseling for our frontline staff as well. So it's a really important question. You know, we need to make sure that the people who are caring for people are well so that they can do their jobs well to care for people. And I think Justine might have something to say about that as well.
Yeah, I think for me, this raises like something like super important for me as just to piggyback what Ashley said and the amount of overdoses that we respond to. The staff are literally bringing people back from the dead, and for them to then go home and go online and see their work being criticized profusely is really impacting their mental health as well too. So I just ask as a community too that people be a little bit sensitive to that there's people that are dedicating themselves, that are going home, that are reliving incidents over and over again in regards to overdoses and criticizing themselves and did I do it right? Should I have done this? Should I have done that? So I just want to ask the community to just be a little bit considerate for a fragile group of individuals that are working really, really hard to keep people alive, because in order for people to even have an opportunity to have change or fulfilled life in a different manner, they have to be alive in order to be able to have that opportunity to make change. So, and it's the people here that are dedicating themselves over and over again to what is very traumatic work. And we actually don't even have a lot of people to relate to, because things like the ICH and safe consumption sites are so new in this country. We rely heavily on each other. So I ask the community to be very, really sensitive to those individuals' needs as well.
Which is really a great opportunity for us to thank you for the work that you're doing. And it's vital. And as you said, you are dealing with these real world life and death issues every day, and just the stress and difficulty of you know, every time you go to check on the shower, every time you go to check in the washrooms, or every time there's that anxiety about what's going to happen. And we can't imagine how difficult it is. So we appreciate the work that you do. And that's really, we want to be here and build this little community to support you. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to suggest, I have one, there are many other questions. So we're going to try, I know I apologize, we can't deal with them all tonight. So we're going to take some of these to the Community Liaison Committee. One of the questions that's here is actually a perfect segue to the session or to the section on Community Liaison Committee. So Rob, I'm just going to ask you to put up the slide about the Community Liaison Committee. It's interesting because Paul had a question. He actually went back to a report that I'd written in 2017. He dug up one of my reports in Toronto. Community liaison committees can also provide a forum for complaints, although very well-run shelters, the number of complaints are very low. So that was how he brought it forward, kind of bring this back. Why are there so many complaints here? When I wrote a report 4 or 5 years ago that said that the number of complaints should be low. First of all, this is not a shelter. This does not meet shelter standards. This is a different model of integrated care dealing with very vulnerable clients with particular needs. Quite often, they are the victims. The clients here are victimized as much as anyone. We're tonight trying to deal with neighborhood issues that relate so that we can try and mitigate or manage and minimize those issues that happen in the neighborhood. So setting up a community liaison committee actually can be part of making this situation healthier and more sustainable. And I just want to put this up on the screen. And the idea is to create a safe place for a conversation. So you're not just throwing questions and lob balls and seeing if people can hit them or seeing if they don't answer them the right way. The idea is really to create a healthier dynamic where people can come once a month to bring issues. And it could be issues like people keep running out into the traffic. Or it could be issues like the noise after 11 o'clock is just too much. Or these are real world things that happen in communities and neighborhoods. So, but not to feel afraid bringing these ideas or questions forward, but also giving us an opportunity, giving the ICH staff an opportunity to work through solutions. What might work on a Friday night might be different from a weeknight, for example. But to have a place for those conversations. The suggestion is that we set up the CLC and we have one meeting a month for a couple of hours, which actually gives us more time than we've had tonight. The proposal that's being brought forward then, and you can actually see this on the HARS website. If you go to hars.ca, I think it's hars.ca/ICH public engagement, there's a proposal there. And it's that local residents from Montreal Street, Rideau Street, local businesses, people who are involved in the community, some folks who support the ICH, service users, people with real world experience, what I call real world experience, other people call lived experience, that they're able to participate. We'd have some city officials there, bylaw, police, integrated care staff who would come once a month, basically for 2 hours to deal with many of the issues that we've had tonight. That's the purpose of this. If you're interested, and I've talked to many neighbors about this already, if you're interested, if you go to the hars.ca/ICH public engagement / if you go to that site, you can click on it. If you do not have access to technology, if you don't have a computer, or if you're not able to do it through your phone or iPad, you can actually ask at the ICH and they will help to make an application, or they can do it, or we can work with you if you call this number to make an application if you're interested in being on it. I think so far we've had about 5 people on sign up. We're still looking for residents. We're still looking for, I think we have a couple of business people already. If there are community groups or faith groups or advocacy groups, that would be great. That's the idea, that once a month we would come together to discuss the same kind of issues that we're talking about tonight. Now, if it's an issue about the internal relations of how the ICH works, like why are the clients doing this or that, or the internal procedures, some of those issues may have to be dealt with offline, but I think the Community Liaison Committee is a really, really, really great way for this to start. Ashley, you have your hand up. Did you want to jump in on the community liaison piece of this?
Yes. Well, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm going to say, so we'll just go with this. But I guess just seeing my email up there, I just wanted to assure people that if they email, that I'll respond. And I have a lot of feels coming up right now. You know, it's been a really tough year. I'm really thankful that somebody kind of brought up, you know, how this work affects us. And oftentimes as a management team, you know, we feel like we are making impossible decisions. And I want to speak to that because you can see even through the messages and the stream of messages that are coming in, you know, we're really trying our best to you know, provide client-driven services. We've been frontline advocates and social justice advocates our entire careers. And we believe that we're social justice advocates first, and then community workers second. Being in the positions that we're in right now, we're every single day making decisions that are around life and death situations for people. So we know that there are very valid concerns with community neighbors around, you know, violence and fighting and noises and ambulances and police coming. And those are valid. And we completely get that. And what we try to do when there are people in accessing our services that are causing issues, we have to keep in mind how that is affecting the broader neighborhood. When we have to ask somebody to leave, it's really hard to ask somebody to leave when we've reversed an overdose and brought them back to life many times that week. And we live with the decision that to balance collective care and safety, that when we're asking that person to leave and they're going to go camp on the neighboring properties, we know that our neighbors are going to be upset with that. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good in the public eye. We also don't want that to happen because when people are camping on the other side of the fence, we can't keep them safe. We live in fear that somebody's going to be over there and that they're going to overdose and that there's going to be an overdose fatality. And if they were here on our property, we could reverse that. So, and then while they're camping over there, when bylaw comes, we have an amazing homelessness advocates in our community like Crystal Wilson, and we need more people like Crystal and other people in Tish and people who are doing this work to stand behind the people that we serve and make sure that people aren't overpowering people who are living in the margins. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we're doing the best that we can. We want to get to a place where it's okay that we make mistakes at the end if nobody really gets hurt, that we're not going to be publicly criticized for that. And we're just really at the end of the day doing the best that we can, but we might make mistakes. As some of the people we serve maybe make mistakes, but we're trying our best. I will respond to emails when people email me at that email. If I don't get back to you right away, it's because, you know, there's things going on and oftentimes I'm back to back in meetings, but I will get back within 24 hours from Monday to Friday if anyone emails me there. And I think Justine and Amanda just wanted to speak a bit to that as well. So thank you. And thank you for everybody who came tonight.
Thank you very much for that, Ashley. Did you say that Amanda and Justine also wanted to have a short closing comment? Go ahead.
Justine will start and then I'll.
So for me, I'll take any opportunity that I can get and talk about how drastically the drug landscape is changing and how that looks and us trying to navigate it day in and day out. And I've worked with people that have been doing this work for 30 years and never, ever have seen anything like what we're experiencing now with the drug poisoning catastrophe. We are in a dangerous game of Russian roulette every single day in regards to some substances. The poisonous cuts and fillers that are being put into substances too are actually changing the chemical makeup in individuals' brains as well too. So we're dealing with complex issues that none of us have ever really seen before. And that is a challenging thing day in and day out to navigate. But like Ashley said, like we're committed to people. We are trying our absolute best. The landscape and what happens in people's complex lives and the chaos is that things change every single day. And we're trying desperately to stay on top of it and to keep up with it. So I just ask for people's patience, know that we're committed to this. We're committed to our neighbors as well. But the reality is we're in one of the worst drug poisoning crises we've ever seen. Especially North America has ever seen. And we're absolutely trying our best, not only to save people, but to fight for the necessary changes in regards to drug policies that have been killing people for far too long. So again, grateful to everybody that came and I'm very, very appreciative for your time.
Thank you very much.
I won't take up too much time because I know it's past 7. And echo what Ash and Justine have said. I think this has been one of the most challenging, but one of the most rewarding and beautiful experiences of our lives. We feel great privilege to be a part of the lives of the people we serve on a day-to-day basis. This ties into the Community Liaison Committee, and I think what has always been our overall goal. And our overall goal, we talk about it here, is creating a community of kindness. And I think, you know, that might get lost in thinking that it's specifically the people we're serving at the ICH. Really, our community is our entire community. And especially when we are here, we recognize and we do thank each and every one of you for coming on to this call and for asking questions, for voicing your support, for having, you know, good constructive dialogue, because we recognize it. You are our neighbors. Our unhoused neighbors are our neighbors. And a dream would be for us to be able to coexist together, to be responsive to the concerns that are being brought forward, to be responsive to the needs of the people we serve, and come up with, you know, trauma-informed solutions for everyone who's a part of this neighborhood and a part of this community. We want each of you to know our faces and to be able to come and have, you know, not only challenging conversations, but good conversations, and conversations where we have mutual learning and mutual gain from being a part of the same community. And I think there's beautiful opportunity, not only with this Community Liaison Committee coming up, where we'll be able to create good dialogue, support one another as neighbors, support the people we serve. But with COVID restrictions lightening, I think there's beautiful opportunity for us to have some community barbecues. And we always talk about this work being relational. Again, it's been one of the greatest privileges of our lives to even get to know and spend time with the people we serve. And we offer that invitation to our neighbors is to come and hang out with us, have a barbecue, get to know the individuals here, get to know their stories, because just like we have, you know, come to love and care for some of the most beautiful souls we've ever had the privilege of meeting, we know that our neighbors will as well. And we know that the people we serve will be able to find solidarity and support in our neighbors within this community as well. So like, stay tuned. You know, we've had lots of conversations around bringing in local businesses, bringing in our neighbors. So we actually have the chance to just all see each other face to face, learn from one another, share experiences together. I think we would realize that a lot of us have very similar experiences, just in different ways. And us being successful as at the Integrated Care Hub really is the community coming together. It comes back to questions of how can we support volunteering, dropping off donations, coming and chatting with the people we serve, and bringing in kind of that relational, humanistic approach to being a collective community of safety, of care, of support is of the utmost importance to us. So thanks to each and every one of you. We are always around to answer questions, to voice your concerns. We will try and come up with creative solutions and be able to work together to make sure that, you know, everyone is benefiting from the ICH being in this neighborhood.
Amanda, thank you very much for that. Thank you for being here. Justine and Ashley, thank you for being on the panel tonight. Also, thank you to Sergeant Clement from the Kingston Police Service. Thank you for being here. And I'd like to thank everyone for participating tonight. We tried to get through a lot of questions tonight in the time that was made available, and we appreciate you being here. I'd like to thank our support at the City of Kingston, my colleague Rob from the Communications Department, and your technology staff for helping to put this on. Tonight's session will be posted on the Kingston YouTube channel, and we're also going to post a link to at the hars.ca website, so it'll be up in a couple of days. You can share it with other people. If you're able to join the Community Liaison Committee, it would be great if you can go to that website, the hars.ca/ICH Public Engagement. Please join. Even if you're not able to join the committee, you can still let us know, and we can invite you if you have questions or comments at future meetings. But that Community Liaison Committee is really an important next step, something that we're going to do every month. And we very much appreciate your involvement in considering that. Thank you once again, and have a great night.